So you found the skeleton. How would you tell people that? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research.
All right, everybody. We are back with Kent with Bent. What is this, 45?
45.
45, yes, 45. The Rocky Hovind picture show, which I know I've scarred all of your brains with a thumbnail, so sorry, not sorry. It's, you know, sometimes you have to make a sacrifice. And the sacrifice that you all made was being subjected to a Rocky Horror Picture Show face swap with Kent Hovind's face over Tim Curry's face.
Yeah, you guys didn't even know you were making that sacrifice.
Yeah.
But you're welcome.
All right. So last time we finished CSE Session 2. Well, I guess we didn't finish the entire video, but Kent Hovind was like, all right, let's talk about what we're going to do next time. And I was like, who cares? We'll just do it next time. I don't need to prep. But with us today, we have our friend Josh. So say hello, Josh.
Hello.
Hello. Apparently, my two co-hosts are also feeling like they're camera shy today. So, boo. Well, whatever.
Well,
technically, we're all camera shy, but
Kent Hovind's a little under the weather. And
Yeah.
he's powering through. It's not too bad. But
Then get well wishes. Oh, and David Pnuff thanks me for coming to his stream. You are welcome. Let's see. And Eric Rittler says that he listened to one of the Rocky Horror Picture Show songs this morning. Sweet transvestite. There you go. All right. Well, I don't want to spend too much time on the preamble here. So let's go over the rules, because we got rules. This ain't the street where they ain't got no rules. This is
there's no rules on the street.
Yeah. Except for one.
Here.
No hits below the belt. Back by dinner.
Well, obviously.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, here the rules are that we have some drinking rules, and we drink whenever Kent Hovind gets something right that he didn't just read off of something or quote someone on. He has to actually make it on his own. So there's that. We also drink whenever it's just so stupid we kind of have to. Also, whenever he tells a joke that just falls flat. Also, when we get some kaiju noises, mostly it's Godzilla.
Oh, look at that timer.
As in that. So we'll take our first drink for Godzilla, as is tradition. There we go. First sip of, well, gulp. I don't know what you call these. Sip to gulp size gulp through a straw. Whatever. Even though dinosaurs can't use straws, just don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's a specialized straw.
Right. So, those are the rules. Are there any that I've forgotten?
I don't think so.
All right, well, let's just get into this.
wait.
Oh, wait.
You said if he did something right, and if he takes a joke, but he said something really stupid that I missed. Did you?
Yeah, if it's stupid enough, like just regular stupid, we don't drink for it.
Oh,
It's gonna be pretty colossally.
Did you say the super chat, the email?
Yeah, that's the one I did forget. So, if you are a channel member, which if you're not, you can become one for $1.99 or up. By the way, if you are a channel member and you super chat one of the kaiju emotes, we have a Godzilla and a Mothra, then I will also take a drink for that. But yeah, so you have to be a member if you want to make me drink by paying me to drink. Because if all of you could do that, I might die.
You're not that thirsty, are you?
Yeah.
There's a guest behind you.
I put a capital H in the title. Which capital H did I put in?
Oh, the TH.
Oh, I'll fix it later. Whatever. Oh, hey, Maya's here.
Maybe it's like it's an emphasize the Ohio State University.
Sure, let's go.
The three lies that Satan told to Eve. Who can name any of those?
Wait, can anyone name the lies? One of them is you can be like God. God didn't say you would die, and I don't know what the third one is.
I don't remember the third one.
I don't want any craisins, so I'm just gonna not answer.
Okay.
Deny God's word, and then what?
Deny God's word? It's not a lie, that's a command. Oh, God.
Cause doubts about God's word, and deify mankind. Was that Steve? Got that one? All right.
Wait,
That was weird. Those weren't any of the lies. Did you read the Bible, Kent? I'm taking a drink. Get the Bible right.
I'm not even sure he listed 3 things.
I mean,
there.
kind of got the third one right, but it was too far off. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was stupid. You can't even get the Bible right, Kent.
There we go. Let's see. How many times in Ezekiel did Lucifer say, I will? 5 times. Man, this guy's on the ball. You like raisins? He didn't have supper or something, or what?
I mean, weird trivia, but okay.
Who cares?
Okay. See, that'll be for tonight. Then last
Who cares
week
how
we
many
talked
times
about...
Lucifer said, I will. What does that have to do with anything?
Dude, I don't know.
I-
It's just Bible trivia. Why bother learning any science in this Creation Science Evangelism 101 course? Just learn useless trivia about the Bible. And by
This
useless
one isn't-
trivia, I mean like how many times someone said a particular word.
This one isn't called Why Satan Hate Us or whatever, right?
Well, to be fair, he is reviewing from last week, which was Why Satan Hate Us, not Why Hate and Sate Us, which would also be an interesting title.
I don't know.
Stupid whore energy is in the house.
Oh, what up, Stupid Whore Energies? Nice to see you here. Although I will say it's disappointing that now James has gotten over your name and he no longer blushes. I miss the blushing, James. Whatever.
I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and blush on his behalf.
Okay.
He has trouble saying
I'm
my
off
name with a
camera,
straight face
too.
still.
He-
So there's that.
He was also confused by Beethoven, no relation. It took him a few. He was like, "Oh, no relation." Okay, I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah. Come on, man.
The quiz, the different types of... We covered for the quiz tonight. The different meanings of the word evolution. I had a debate a couple days... Yesterday? Where was I? Arkansas. Little Rock, Arkansas. And I debated a professor up there.
The state where it's illegal to mispronounce the name of the state.
I've learned that I have 2 more debates coming up scheduled. If you start off defining what you mean by the word evolution, the argument's basically over. Because there are 6 different meanings to the word.
What you mean by it? Sure.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna
Follow
take a drink for the irony on that situation because Kent Hovind does nothing but misdefine things.
It's mystifying.
Yeah.
It's very confusing.
And this is something we'll be quizzed on tonight. Cosmic evolution, that would be the origin of time, space, and matter,
The Big Bang.
i.e. the Big Bang.
It's called the
They
Big
have no
Bang.
evidence for this at all, but they believe it happened.
And we already covered
After
it.
that, the Big Bang supposedly produced hydrogen, which then you'd have to have billions of years of chemical evolution.
Nucleosynthesis, Kent.
Now, what I'm doing now in my timeline, on here, I start off not only with my 20 billion year timeline, I add cosmic evolution would be here, and then you'd have chemical evolution somewhere in here. After that, you'd have to have stellar and planetary evolution.
No, Kent. Nucleosynthesis happens as a result of stellar evolution, which is the lifetime of stars. I really hate this.
Stars and planets would have to form. Nobody's ever seen that happen,
Except
but
when
they
we
believe
have.
that it did. And then you finally get to number 4.
Because he is really good at being really bad at the science of this.
Yeah.
Consistently.
Well, the
He's
thing
a
is,
salesman. He's not a scientist.
right, he's really good at selling his ideas. Like, really, really good at it. And if you don't already know what the correct answer is and how we know it, it's actually pretty easy to fall for this. I know,
Oh, I
because
fell
I did.
for it.
Exactly.
Until what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago? It really wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was longer
3
for me,
years ago,
but...
maybe?
Oh,
3
no,
or 4?
I'm a Red Whale asks if I've ever heard of Christians Against Dinosaurs. I have, but I'm not convinced that they are for real. So, yeah, I don't know.
Is it Poe's Law?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But maybe they are. I don't know.
Which is organic evolution. Now you have to get the origin of life. Life has to get started from non-living material.
Abiogenesis.
Most textbooks, it's hilarious to watch. They'll spend a whole chapter talking about Francisco Redi and Louis Pasteur, saying how life cannot come from non-living material.
Yes, because this was tied with the concept of vitalism, which in fact is nonsense. Vitalism isn't a thing. So, okay. I think it's actually good to go through vitalism and why spontaneous generation and abiogenesis are not the same thing. So vitalism, you gotta remember, at one point, the difference between being alive and dead was very mysterious. It's still a little bit odd. We still don't have great definitions for it, but at least on a cellular level, it's not too difficult. But even more so, it wasn't clear how reproduction worked, or what was actually making something alive when it was alive. And since it didn't seem to correspond very well to any of the other forces in nature that we discovered. Like, organisms weren't obviously electrical, they weren't obviously burning chemicals like a fire, although there was some kind of metabolism, so we knew that. But they also weren't, like most animals at least weren't receiving light from, electromagnetic waves, and gravity clearly couldn't be it. So there was this big question, like, what is it that's keeping an animal alive? And so the idea was that it was this vital force. It was a unique form of energy that only living things had, and when it began to dissipate, it could collect into smaller, simpler organisms. So if you had a piece of cow meat hanging out and you didn't digest it to make its life force part of your life force, the life force would simply kind of linger about and eventually coalesce into something like maggots. Well, then there's the question, okay, is that actually what's happening? And so experiments were done, and it was shown that no, these forms of life do not form out of a coalescence of vital energy. And then later on, we got a better understanding about things like chemical metabolism and the electrical impulses in the nervous system. And suddenly, vitalism just kind of fell apart. But...
Well, question.
Yes.
I mean, the sheer fact of an ever-increasing world population, isn't that already a damning indictment of vitalism? Because that seems to imply that there's a finite amount of vital force. Right?
Well, so where vital force comes from is an open question. Like, maybe the sun gives it to plants, and then plants give it to animals, and then predators get it from the animals. That's at least a possibility. And if you think about it, it's actually not far off from correct, because basically all the chemical energy you use is stored chemical energy that came from the sun. There's some chemotrophic bacteria who are an exception to this, but for the most part, all the energy that all life uses does ultimately come from the sun. So whether or not there's a limited or finite amount of vital energy that is available to the Earth forever and ever, I don't think most vitalists would have argued that. But anyway, as we develop these understandings that life is essentially a chemical process, then the same question, well, how can life come about? Is there a natural explanation? We began to investigate chemical processes. And while we don't currently have a comprehensive theory of abiogenesis, it is the case that we have ways for basically all of the building blocks of life to come about and stick around, including phospholipid bilayers, complex lipids, even carbohydrates, small proteins, RNA, including we've now discovered that ribose can actually remain stable for a long time in certain environments. So yeah. So it's conflating abiogenesis and spontaneous generation is something you can only do if you are either ignorant of both or you choose to ignore the differences. I don't know which one Kent is, but I suspect he's willfully ignorant so that he doesn't have to choose.
Then the next chapter, it says, however, we believe life came from non-living material. I just say, don't you see what you just did?
No, and no one else does.
Organic evolution would have to be here.
Taking a drink.
Then you'd have to have macroevolution, which is changes between different kinds of animals. And finally, you get to microevolution. Now, that one is scientific. The rest of them are pure religion. They just don't happen. And they're always arguing about, where's the border between micro and macro? I say, well, I don't know, and that's a good field of study.
No one's arguing about where the border is, Ken. The border is at speciation. If we can reasonably argue that speciation has occurred, that's macroevolution. Then the question really becomes, well, what's a species? And the real answer that I have for you is, there's a lot of different definitions. Some of them are useful, some of them aren't very useful, some of them are more useful in some fields. But the other thing is, it doesn't matter, because there isn't actually a border between micro and macroevolution. It's like the border between micro and macro erosion. Microerosion you might call when a stream erodes a little path down your garden. Macroerosion is like the Grand Canyon. Well, they're both erosional features. They both use the same things. There's no one level at which micro stops. Donald Edwards, you're not really late. We've been going for, 14 minutes?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but look at even multicellular organisms versus single cell. It's like we're all alive, and it's just different levels of organization. But it's not like there is some sort of fundamental or quantum change in the degree to which they're alive.
Yeah. All right. So
we ought to be working on that. However, that doesn't prove the other 5 are part of evolution.
Because they aren't. No one Well, the fifth one is, but the other four aren't. No one is trying to work on the border between micro and macro in order to prove that the Big Bang is part of evolution. That's stupid.
Yeah, he's just rank equivocating here.
Yeah.
I now use the term, I say they smuggled these other ones in when nobody was looking.
No,
They smuggle in.
they're taught separately in different classes. Like, maybe it was different when Kent Hovind was going to high school. But when I was going to high school, we didn't have evolution class that started with the Big Bang and ended up with, like, micro variation in tooth wear patterns on cows as microevolution. Like, that's not how any science class I've ever taken went. Is anyone else?
No.
Even in college, in chemical engineering, there was like reaction kinetics for chemistry, and then there were like nuclear interactions for nuclear chemistry. There was biology for chemists, which we actually went over evolution. I mean, they're actually separate.
Yeah, it's this bizarre. Basically, Kent is saying the entire scientific consensus is BS, and therefore anyone who tries to import any of it is trying to also smuggle in the rest of it. Or, Kent, or it could just be that because there's consilience between different fields of science, because, you know, they're all presumably reaching towards the same fundamental underlying reality, that concordance is just a thing you expect. But they're still separate sciences. I don't know, maybe.
Kent just seems like he has like an 80 to 85% accurate view of what it's like to be a college student going to like biology courses and chemistry courses.
80 to
It's
85?
not
That
he's got a
seems
lot of
high.
the stuff right, but a lot of the key details he's getting really wrong. And maybe that is high, but it's like he doesn't really know enough about what goes on because he never did that himself.
I think
Yeah.
honestly,
He never went to a real college and really learned real science
I don't think he
in
really,
the form of biology 101 or whatever, you know.
I think it's much simpler than that. He conflates colloquial uses of these terms with the scientific uses of them, and then just constantly equivocates to sell his idea.
Or he can do both of those. But I really do
And
think
that's what someone might do if they never went to those courses, but they kind of, from the outside looking in, kind of have some idea of how that works. But they really don't know because they never went through it.
I really like Kent Hovind imagines that at some point someone walks into a big lecture hall and the class is just called science. And at one point, one day, they're like, okay, guys, let's talk about the Big Bang. And then the next day, they're like, all right, well, now that we've covered the Big Bang, let's talk about punctuated equilibrium in ceratopsian fossils in Laramidia. And what? Like, I think that's how he imagines college classes. But let's get some more Kent in here.
Microevolution's a fact, but they smuggle in the rest of them as if it is part of science, and it's certainly not. Okay, we also talked about, in 1933, a very famous document was written called the Humanist Manifesto.
Ooh.
One of the signers of the Humanist Manifesto was a fellow named John Dewey.
Is he from the Dewey Decimal System? Might be.
John Dewey was one of the most influential people in the world, at least in America, when it comes to public education. John Dewey, a humanist, and he went to Vermont to the Teachers College and just led a secret, quiet revolution, so to speak, in training teachers who later became principals and deans at colleges. And basically our education system was taken over by the humanist philosophy, largely because of the work of a guy named John Dewey.
Okay, let's go over what Kent objects to in the modern education system. One is public funding, which I'm not going to get into. I mean, it's not the top of my channel. Right. But the other one seems to be teaching science as science. I don't understand how that's objectionable, but I guess he would rather just have them teach straight up lies.
It's not fair that the big bad government gets to teach the evolutionism religion, but not the creationism religion in Kent Hovind's.
I mean, honestly, like, even in public universities, they teach theology. They go, hey, this religion believes this.
Yep.
And this is the basis for it. And when you're learning science classes, like, this is what scientists think is the reason something happens and why.
Yep, I took a comparative religions class when I was in school. And
religions.
I took separate biology and astronomy classes, wherein we didn't talk about any of the same things that we talked about In my comparative religion class, it's almost like they're not really connected.
Yeah.
Almost. All right.
There's a Latin phrase that means single spoken sentence. What is that Latin phrase?
Well, whatever it is, it's not universe, because we know that's a lie, and we're still doing like overviews of what we did last time. This is boring. Can't get to new stuff.
Universe, right?
Yeah,
interesting.
that's the word I couldn't think of.
Evolutionists are always talking about the universe. Hey, do you know what that means?
We already covered, but universe means a single thing that spins because of, geocentrism. The whole universe spun around the Earth according to the ancient Romans. Yeah, that's the actual meaning.
Single spoken sentence. God said, "Let there be." Well, who remembers last week some of the problems with the Big Bang Theory? What does it not explain? Doesn't explain where the matter came from. What else?
Just FYI, I don't think God said "let there be" is a complete sentence. So.
Yeah, you need some kind of like
noun.
Yeah, there needs to be some kind of like predicate nominative noun in there. Take that, Latin teachers. I know what predicate nominative is. You jerks. Anyway.
Right. Where'd you come from? Where the laws come from? Why do we have clumps of matter called galaxies and zillions of miles of nothing in between?
Actually, the Big Bang does explain very well why we have clumps of galaxies. It's called the anisotropy of the cosmic microwave background radiation. Yeah, that's a thing.
Turns out that things aren't uniformly distributed.
Yeah, basically. Started out that way. As a result of quantum mechanics, and we've worked out the math, and the math has matched the actual observed distribution of matter in the universe as well as the observed anisotropy in the cosmic microwave background radiation. So far from being inexplicable by the Big Bang actually does answer the question, why do we have clumps of matter as opposed to just an evenly distributed sea of helium?
It's quite explicable.
Yes.
I mean, if the Big Bang Theory were true, matter should be evenly distributed.
Wrong. I'm just going to take a drink.
Oof.
Yep. We already went over why that's wrong, so.
And it's not. And retrograde motion. Everything's not spinning the same direction.
God, the Big Bang has nothing to do with that. I'm taking a drink on that one.
Okay. Any questions?
Kent literally thinks the universe exploded from the Big Bang because it spun up too fast, because he can't tell the difference between the nebular hypothesis of solar system formation and the Big Bang. It's... I know that we
just
covered this last time.
I think there's a common. I think there's a common thread among creationists who often, conflate, evolution with abiogenesis because they're the same, some kind of evolution. Is that they forget that the inorganic elements of the universe actually interact with each other in predictable ways. They aren't just, undirected or it's as if they don't just magically connect with each other or don't connect. There's specific ways in which they interact.
Chemistry still works out in the universe. It's not just completely random.
Yeah,
everything's just random out there.
Right.
Observable.
That's the other thing.
And yeah.
Is that people seem to think that because something has a probabilistic chance of happening, that it's random. It's like, that's not quite the same thing.
Yeah, there are random factors, but it's not quite random if you can make good predictions about the outcome.
Right.
Here we go.
Also, we covered the word thermodynamics. Who remembers what that means? Heat for thermometer, and dynamics for power. Dynamite means heat power. And there are basically two laws of thermodynamics. One says things...
Oh. What? There are not basically two. There are four.
Now, granted, the first one, the zeroth law, is a bit kind of like, it's a formality, but it's still there.
It's important. Otherwise, you couldn't demonstrate that.
The other three, yeah.
Well, you couldn't even demonstrate that thermometers work.
Right.
So there are four laws of thermodynamics, and sure, the third law and the zeroth law are the ones that no one really cares about most of the time. But they're there. They're full laws. They matter.
Can't create themselves. Second one says everything's falling apart.
No, that's not what the second one says. But again, we already covered it last time. I don't need to go in depth into it.
We don't see anything improving. Somehow they think if you just add energy, things will improve. Well, the sun adds energy all...
Oh, no one thinks that, Ken. What we think is that in order for local entropy to decrease in a closed or open system, additional energy has to be added, which brings the system out of thermodynamic equilibrium with the surrounding environment. Therefore, an energy gradient forms, therefore work can be done.
Yeah.
That's
like it really, like, people like to say that entropy is just disorder, but it's more about organization of energy. And people, again, this is just the equivocation of like the colloquial use of disorder and this subjective, oh, it's improving. Like, well, not necessarily. Like, things can become more ordered and it's still not an improvement depending on what you see as an improvement.
So actually, you know what, Josh, if you would like, you could work on some basic thermodynamic stuff, and I could put it up on my channel if you think that would be a thing that people should see.
I could.
You being an engineer and all.
Yeah. Maxwell's equations, like, once you see them, it makes so much more perfect sense. The problem is that you need at least like beginner calculus to understand it. So I'd have to. There's probably a better way of making that more digestible to.
So doing a series of videos on your channel is what you're going to be doing? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I'd have to sit
Is that
down.
what you're announcing right now? Okay.
No.
Is there the start of a new channel?
I mean, I'm not. At this point, I'm not confident whether I could make it digestible for.
Oh, I'd help you with that. Don't worry about that. We'll talk about that later off air.
Okay.
All the time to the Earth, but it doesn't improve anything. It destroys everything.
No, it doesn't.
Except one thing is able to use the sun's energy. Chlorophyll. If it weren't for that...
Yeah, forget about retinol, right? Retinol doesn't count. Kent.
Retinol counts somewhere.
Inside of purple algae.
There's also more than one kind of chlorophyll.
Well, okay, but I mean, you could say like there's more than one kind of it and name a thing.
Yeah.
So is there more than one kind of human? Like, okay, that doesn't mean you can't call humans a thing. I'm perfectly happy with calling chlorophyll what is it? A class of chemicals, if you will.
Yeah, there's a family. That's fair.
Oh, it's a family. Are there orders and genera? I'm just messing with you, man. Don't worry about it.
The sun would destroy everything on Earth.
What?
You can't use the sunlight. You can't turn it into energy. Only chlorophyll in plants can do that.
All right. Can use sunlight to make vitamin D.
That's not really energy, though.
True.
Like you're not getting calories out of your vitamin D.
That's true, but it is utilizing solar energy. It's just not getting energy from it.
Right.
We're going to talk about what can the public schools teach about creation. There's an awful lot of misinformation going around out there. I get faxes and emails and letters all the time, especially about after what happened in Kansas. How many heard about that when Kansas said we're not going to require macroevolution to be taught? Boy, the evolutionists came unglued. There's articles in the paper, letters to the editor. CNN has a whole section on their website.
Yeah, because it would be like trying to teach physics in high school and saying that we're not going to talk about momentum or Newton's laws of motion. It's completely insane to try to teach biology without mentioning evolution. It doesn't make a lick of sense. It is the foundational principle of all of modern biology. It is the only thing that connects all the disparate facts of biology into a coherent whole that can be made sense of. You might as well try to teach geography without maps. Doesn't make any sense.
Obviously, the blue part of the map is the land.
Thanks, Buster. Now, let me ask you, are you at all worried about a peasant uprising?
Well, this is 18th century agrarian economics.
About how Kansas is going to go back to the Dark Ages now. Very interesting. Let me explain what the truth is and what the law is about this. As far as
yes, let's have Kent Hovind explain the law to us. I'm sure that this will be 100% accurate legal advice, he said very sarcastically. I'm just taking a drink.
Like a special guest speaker, Kyle.
Oh my goodness! I'm taking a drink.
As we all know, Mr. Hovind does have a great track record when it comes to run-ins with the law.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, all that structuring and failure to file payroll taxes and mail a fraud and threatening a judge, all that great stuff. Now, to be fair, some of those things were dismissed, and some of them he was acquitted of due to jury tampering, but whatever, we'll let that go.
Anybody can figure out there are only two options. Somebody created the world, or the world created itself.
Or some impersonal force created the world. I'm going to go with that the entire universe is the result of the mad god Azathoth's dreaming, and that when he finally wakes up, the universe will disappear the same way that your dreams disappear, Kent. But since Azathoth isn't a who, it's a what. It doesn't have any personality. It doesn't have any intelligence. It just continues to exist. What you got, Kent?
Always existed?
Well, there's also the possibility, although it seems unlikely, that the world always existed.
I mean,
like
yeah,
the universe.
there is that too.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, isn't in Hindu, we are the dreams of gods in Hindu? I mean, I might be misunderstanding that. Maybe that's an oversimplification.
Well, first, the name of the religion is Hinduism.
Oh, yes.
Hindu is an adjective describing it, or a noun referring to adherence.
Yes.
But second, yeah, so there's the dreams of Brahma and the various yuga cycles and whatnot. Excuse me, too much soda, I guess. All of which violate the, like if they're taken too literally, at least the yuga cycles don't match up with actual history or geology or paleontology or archaeology. However, the idea of the cyclical dreams of Brahma, which are just absurdly long, and then when they come to an end, he wakes up, and then after he falls back asleep, a new universe is generated. Yeah, also a possibility. But then you could argue that that's a who, because Brahma is more of a personal entity in most versions of Hinduism. Although not all. One of the things is it's hard to take a hard theological stance and say this is the Hindu stance, because Hinduism has been developing multiple theological strains for 4,000 years. So there's a lot of diversity in Hinduist thought in terms of how literally the god should be taken and all this stuff. So,
well, but if you're practice Hinduism, that means you believe in Buddha, right?
I think that's Buddhism.
Are you sure?
No.
Now, Monk Mayfair worships the great green Arkel-Seizure and fears the coming of the great white handkerchief.
I heard that's a pretty unpopular religion in the galaxy, so it's good to know that that it's spreading.
So I guess he is a monk of that specific religion.
Yep. Was it Vodal 5 or something? Is that the planet where it's popular?
Oh.
Now, there are some who say, well, no, the world's always been here. Now, hold it, that violates the first and second laws of thermodynamics.
No,
it doesn't.
No.
One guy wrote me an email last week, and he said, don't you think God could have created a universe that was always here? I said, think about what you're saying. If he created it, it wasn't always here.
I'm actually with Kent Hovind on this one. I don't know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So you know what, Kent? I'm going to drink for you getting something right. That is a nonsense statement. Oh, look at that. Donald Edwards with a knowledge dump. Things that can use direct sunlight. Chlorophylls, phaeophytins, retinols, phycobilins. Oh my goodness.
Melanins. I have melanins.
Carotenoids, melanins, various elements, crystacinin, etc. Boom.
We have a contradiction of terms here. Sure, God can do what he wants, but the laws tell us the universe could not have always existed. It is winding down, so there had to be a beginning. So basically, the only two reasons...
He's basically saying because the second law of thermodynamics is operating, the universe as it exists now can't be eternal. And you know what? I'll agree with him. If the universe had existed in its sort of diffuse cool state for eternity, it would have, by now, run down.
That's true, yeah.
We would have an infinite gulf of time behind us, so it would never have it basically could never have gone above thermodynamic equilibrium or maximum entropy. So yeah, I'll agree.
Basically, I guess that kind of rules out the idea that the universe was always eternal. Yeah.
I was off by one number. It wasn't Vodal 5, it was Vodal 6. Man, nerd card revoked.
Well, I kept thinking of the Vogel, like the
Vogons?
ones with the bad the Vogons, and I was like, that doesn't sound right. Those are the ones with bad poetry.
Do we have to have a stream at some point about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
There's a little primer on,
Is that what you guys have been talking about?
Yes.
I didn't know. I knew it was a thing, but...
Oh, my
maybe Bent needs a babblefish for nerd.
Yeah, he's not
core.
nerdy enough. Let's get a babblefish in your ear, man.
Possible options are somebody made it, or it made itself. Evolution. Now, what should the schools teach? I get asked this question very frequently. Do you think we should teach creation in public schools? And I think it's a good question, and that's what we're going to discuss tonight. However,
should the schools be public? I'm betting right now that's where he's going. If I'm wrong, I'll just be wrong. I'm not betting anything.
There's another question we should ask first.
Uh-oh.
Should we have public schools?
Yeah.
Called it. I'm taking a drink for that correct prediction, which is a rule we occasionally invoke. Oh, man. Okay.
Or they come unglued when you even ask that question. But that really is a valid question. What right does the government have to get involved in educating your children? That goes off onto a long rabbit trail we could chase. We will forego that tonight.
Thank goodness, because you know what I'm not going to do here is political authority and poli-sci. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah, that's a string we don't try to pull on this channel.
Yeah. Tell you what, if you become my actual personal friend and you want my honest opinion on things like political authority and what the government can reasonably and not reasonably do, befriend me and actually get to know me as a person, not the guy on the channel, and then maybe. But even then, still probably not, because it's boring conversation most of the time.
It's true.
That's why I always shoot the communicator panel. Boring conversation anyway.
Ah, yes. How
exactly.
are you? I'm doing all right. How are you?
About the straw man that they create. We've got a videotape on that. You can call our office about the straw man. It explains all that topic if you'd like. But assuming we cannot stop the public school system by tomorrow, what should they teach in the public schools? Well, for one,
I'm sorry. I just like the idea that he thinks that that's like a thing that they could work towards. It's just, I don't know, it just strikes me as really funny.
the
Like
schools should
the
teach
ultimate goal for
the
him?
truth.
I'll say this, to give him credit, I think he's just acknowledging the political reality of the situation.
I mean, maybe it's just me, and that's just struck a weird, funny bone for me. I'm willing to accept that that's a possibility.
They should teach science. If it's a science class, you teach science. What do we know?
You know what? I'll take a drink for Kent being right on that one. That is what they should teach in science classrooms.
Now, it's important. There's an important distinction here. Science classes should be teaching what we know, what science knows, not what Kent Hovind knows.
Well, Kent Hovind doesn't know very much, because most of what Kent Hovind has high confidence in, he can't justify, nor is it true.
Which is, ironically, not very scientific.
Right.
Even if he was right.
So for me, knowledge, in order to claim knowledge, you need to be able to justify. In order for it to actually be knowledge, which is not something that you can self-assess, it has to be true and justifiable. So if it's true, but you can't justify it, you don't know it. And if it's justifiable to you, but it's actually not true, you don't know it. Which means technically you can't know what you know, so you can but you can get self-assess half of that requirement. You can at least know what you can justify. So, yeah, I guess you can also know things about your own state, but that's self-evident. Like, I know I am sad, or I know I am not sad, or I know I'm thinking about the next chess move. You can know those things because they're self-evidently true. The fact that you're doing them is all the evidence necessary. But if we're talking about scientific things, then yeah. As long as you can justify something, you can reasonably say that you know it. And by justify, I mean using empirical evidence to show why it's likely true. Outside of science, justification takes on different forms, and like in certain areas of philosophy or your interpersonal relationships. But yeah, Ken Hovind knows very little, because very little of what he says he knows can he justify. And also, unjustifiable but true beliefs. Like, for instance, you might think that evolution is true, but most people who do can't actually explain why it would be true or give good enough reasons, which means they don't actually know it's true. They do believe it, but unless you can actually give your justification for that and that works, then you can't really say that you know it. You might just be right anyway. So.
Yeah, plenty of people are right on accident.
Yeah, I would say most people are right about most things on accident, because most people just go with the general consensus of experts on most things. And that's not a sufficient justification. but it's likely to end up with you being right. So it's probably good enough. So for instance, I don't know what the weather's going to be tomorrow, but if I look at my weather app, I feel reasonably confident that it's correct, even though I don't know. So there you go.
Yeah. You can teach biology. Okay, kid, this is the biceps, this is the triceps, these are the extenders, these are the flexors, the radius, the ulna, the humerus.
That's just regular old anatomy. And I'll agree with you, Kent, you don't need evolution to teach human anatomy. But biology is a much broader thing. But let's let them keep going.
Humerus, the deltoid. You can teach all the muscles. And then when they say, well, teacher, how did they get that way? Oh, we're not allowed to discuss that.
Okay, here's one funny thing, though. Kent Hovind likes to name some muscles. But he apparently thought that humans had a caudofemoralis longus muscle, despite lacking the caudal part of the caudofemoralis. Yeah.
Because we don't have caudal vertebrae?
Well, we do, but there's like 5 to 7 of them, and the caudofemoralis longus muscle is a muscle unique to archosaurs. It's the main retractor muscle for the femur in archosaurs, not in mammals.
I know. I'm assuming you're referring to the sacrum and the coccyx. I wasn't sure that they still considered caudal vertebrae.
Yeah, the coccyx is composed of fused caudal vertebrae.
Oh, so, well, if it's just the coccyx, then it's 2. I know the sacrum is 5.
The coccyx has more than 2 vertebrae, and it varies from person to person.
Oh, well then it's been a while since I looked at it. All right.
But that's okay. I think it's 3 to 5, but I could also just be wrong with that. You know what? Who would know is Erica. Gutsa Gibbon would definitely know, because Gutsa Gibbon knows all the things about the humans, and the near humans, and the parahumans, and all that stuff.
And the other primates.
Yes. Yep, she's been doing she's been struggling with her master's thesis, and I feel bad for her. Like, the pandemic, and then having to find a way to standardize her data sets and a methodology that she has to come up with brand new because no one's bothered to do it before.
Ooh.
I do not envy that. And she was supposed to be in, I think it was like Thailand or Malaysia or something, just out doing field work with monkeys. And instead she's stuck in the States, pouring through literatures to basically do a meta-analysis because she can't do field work. And I'm just like, oh, I'm so sorry. But here we go. We'll get a little bit more.
You don't have to get into origins to teach science. It's unnecessary. Okay, kid, here's the different rocks. Learn the names of all these minerals. Learn the hardness test. Here's geometry. Here's...
Okay, but even with rocks, you're not going to teach them the difference between igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks, Kent? Or what about the weird in-betweeny ones, like tuff? Where it's like, it goes up as igneous and it comes down as sedimentary? I mean, okay, also, for $5, one real quick, we have from Opie. Last stream you mentioned spam, and I got a craving, so I had spam for lunch this week. Awesome. Look, spam is one of those things where, like, you can make good food with spam, but you have to know what you're doing. If you just toss some spam on top of some bread or something, it's gonna be terrible. Yeah, so, like, spam is one of those things, and you know what? I was reading this thing, was like, oh, these are terrible foods, and one of them was spam, and the reason that it said it was terrible is because it said even people who like spam say you have to cook it. It's like, no one says that about chicken. Like,
or pork.
Right. Even people who say that they like chicken say that you're supposed to cook it first. It's like, yeah, you are. What do you want from me? It was like the weirdest thing I'd ever read about why a food was bad. Although a lot of the other things, it was like, oh, a tuna mold. It's like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to have tuna gelatin. Fair enough.
Like uncooked rice. I mean, rice is the staple of a
right.
portion of the
Even
world.
people who like rice say that you're supposed to cook it. It's like, yes, most foods are cooked, buddy. Like, are the only good foods out there sushi and apples or something? Like, I don't even like raw apples. I prefer cooked apples.
Hey, you could totally have steak tartare too, right?
Well, yeah, that is good stuff. I've had tuna tartare too. Actually, I had it with you, didn't I, Josh?
Yeah, we had it at that one sushi place, actually.
Yeah, that was really good.
Right.
All right, enough on food. Back to Kent with Owen. Although we do appreciate the $5 super chat from Opie, which I'm glad that you enjoyed the spam.
Mathematics, you can study all of the sciences without getting into the origins issue at all.
Well, you already proved that wrong.
No
with
matter
geology.
what you teach on origin.
So there's something overlooked here, is that, like, when you pointed out with the rocks and everything, is that part of learning geology is not just what the rocks are, but how they formed.
Yeah, it's basically, that's the main thing of geology.
Yeah.
Learning what the name of the rock is and how hard it is and whatnot is just so you can identify it. But the point is to figure out how it got there.
Right,
Vandalia
identify it.
Vandalia 1998 for $2 says, "Spam is evil. After all, it's deviled ham." Yeah, but what about... You know what? And I should make some deviled eggs. I've got the ingredients. I might do that tomorrow.
Yeah, like identifying rocks is not nearly as useful as being able to... Like, if you understand how they form, then you can apply that elsewhere. Like what was going on in this area to cause it to form.
Right. Yeah, the reason people study geology is not so that they can... Well, I mean, some people might. But most geologists are not out there to make, like, a rock collection that they, like, show off in their home or something. It's in support of, like, mining and oil drilling operations, right? That's why people hire geologists. Like, can you tell me where to find this kind of ore? Can you tell me if I drill a well here, am I likely to actually hit oil, and how much? And to know those things, you have to have a detailed knowledge of how the rocks formed, which requires you to know how long it took them to form, because that will change their various things like expected age of sediments for oil, or, you know, mineral compositions and things like that. And you have to reconstruct the thermal history of the rocks, the depositional history of the rocks. All this stuff is very important to mineral and oil prospecting. And if you pretend that the Earth is young, you will get it wrong.
Well, in the same vein, the same principles that are used to predict where things will be in geology are also used to predict, like, say, the next flu strain to make the vaccine. And that would be understanding the evolution of the flu virus.
Yep. Okay, here we go.
Somebody's going to be upset, right?
If you get upset by science, that's not the problem of the public schools. Who cares?
Yeah, we shouldn't avoid the truth because of how people will personally feel about it.
Right. People get upset about vaccines and climate change and evolution. Okay, great. I do not care.
If you teach God did it, the atheists are going to be upset.
Don't teach that.
If you teach God didn't do it,
no one's teaching that.
now the Christians are going to be upset. It's a no-win situation.
Literally no one is teaching that God didn't do it by teaching the science. Nothing about evolution or the Big Bang or any of the other things says that God didn't do it.
Right.
So the ideal solution is for schools to not be involved in teaching origins at all. Just teach science, period.
Except that's part of
would be
science.
Second level question. First level is, should we even have these schools? Okay. Since we have them, okay, what should they do? There's an awful lot of misinformation going around saying the evolutionists write articles and say you can't teach creation in the public schools. Well, now just hold on a minute. Let me explain what happened, give you the history. In 1925, several states passed laws saying you cannot teach evolution. It was against the law to teach evolution. They never mentioned anything about creation. It was assumed you would teach creation. All the schools were teaching it. 1925, there was a famous trial. This will be a quiz question. When was the Scopes trial? This book is word for word, verbatim, everything that happened in the Scopes trial.
That sounds like compelling reading. It would put me to sleep so fast. Man, I very rarely enjoy reading legal things, although I will say the deposition of Kyle Curtis was pretty fun to read. That was actually pretty enjoyable. But we'll leave that alone. You know what? Actually, I am thinking about putting a dramatic reading on my Top Hats Off channel and animating Kyle's face, sort of like you know how they animate the faces of celebrities on South Park with the jaw that flaps up and down? Yeah. I think that might be fun. And give him little eyes that shift around sometimes. I do need voice actors for that. I would need
to hire some good voice actors.
I would need a voice actor for Kyle, a voice actor for Scott.
You could just have readers.
One for his. I would need three voice actors basically. One for each lawyer, and one for Kyle. And I would like for Kyle's lawyer's voice actor to actually be a woman, so that way it jives. Because
my sister is a lawyer, but I don't know if she'd be keen to it.
I mean, I doubt it. It's a whole long deposition. But anyway, that's irrelevant.
1925. What happened in 1925? The ACLU ran an ad in the paper, all over Tennessee, saying we're looking for a teacher who's willing to admit he taught evolution and test this new law because we think we can defeat the law. They had to advertise to find a teacher.
So I'm not exactly sure to what degree there was advertising, so I'm not positive, mostly because I don't care. But it is the case that the defendant in the Scopes trial was in fact put up to being the defendant by the ACLU and a few other organizations. It's similar to the various civil rights cases involving segregation on like buses and trains. The people who actually were put on trial for that, including Rosa Parks, they were all basically doing it on behalf of groups that wanted to overturn these laws. In fact, in some cases, including the train and bus companies. The major challenges to segregation on change is on trains where the legal funds were actually bankrolled by the train companies because they were tired of having half-filled cars and needing like at least a third and more cars than they actually had to have, just because they couldn't sell all of the tickets allotted to colored people and all of the tickets allotted to white people, and I'm using the terms at the time. So this was actually a pretty common thing, especially at the time, where various rights organizations, or sometimes even private companies, would pay for the legal defense for people to violate these laws that they saw as either detrimental to their business or violating civil rights, or both. You know, I'm sure some of the train companies weren't happy with segregation on ethical grounds. I doubt all of them were all just racist jerks.
Oh yeah, well, so it's basically the legal, aspect of standing. You can't sue unless you're an injured party.
Right.
So, and then we even see it today in various civil rights cases. You'll have like gun rights groups have people run afoul of this law, or labor protection groups kind of like it's the same thing. It's just the way you have to thread the legal needle.
Yeah, it's actually one of the reasons why I don't expect even if we could get like a crazy hyper right wing Supreme Court, I don't expect Roe v. Wade to go anywhere, because it's going to be very hard to find someone with standing to sue to get it overturned. Like, what would you be trying to argue, that you should have been aborted?
Yeah,
is that your argument, or you should have been prevented from getting one? I don't even know.
I would assume the idea there would be someone who. No, yeah, I don't really see.
Yeah, it's nearly impossible. Exactly. It's one of those reasons why the Supreme Court keeps rejecting cases that would address it. It's because no one has standing to overturn this precedent. So go away now. Anyway, I'm going to take a drink though, because Kent is broadly right in this aspect of the Scopes monkey trial. It was in fact someone being asked to be put on trial, and since the penalty was just fines, the fines were bankrolled by other people. So good job, Kent. You broadly are getting this aspect correct, at least.
Who would do the case for them? A bunch of guys got together in Dayton, Tennessee, at a drugstore and said, we need to put Dayton on the map. Our town's a little sleepy town in the mountains of Tennessee, and nobody's ever heard of us.
Sure about,
Let's see if we can find a teacher who will claim he taught evolution.
He's right about that.
So they got this teacher named John.
All right, yeah, I'll drink for getting the city right. And I think he's about to get the name of the teacher right, but I honestly can't remember.
Scopes. Scopes.
All right, it was
John
John.
Scopes
Okay.
Substituted teaching biology a couple of days while the regular biology teacher was gone. So they brought John into the drugstore and said, John, would you be willing to claim you taught evolution? He said, well, I don't know if I taught it or not. He said, I just filled in the class for the teacher who was absent for a few days. He said, well, we need you to claim you taught evolution so that we can put you on trial, so that you can be found guilty of teaching evolution, so that we can show how dumb this law is.
I don't know the case well enough to know if it's true. Nothing about this sounds like it's impossible, right? Like, this is the kind of thing where I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's reasonable.
It's
plausible. Yeah. Which is a rarity for Kent, but,
So the ACLU staged this whole thing. Clarence
That's not quite staging, but okay.
Darrow, a famous lawyer at the time, atheist lawyer, he came down to defend John Scopes.
He was secularist, but I'm not actually very sure that he was actually an atheist.
I think in Kent's eyes, anyone who isn't religious is an atheist.
To be fair, that's also in the eyes of a lot of atheist groups. So,
not me.
But it's not me either. I recognize more nuances than that, but I'm not here to have that argument.
His real purpose was to try to make the Christians look stupid.
No, it wasn't.
And to try to get this law overturned.
Look, Ken.
It's actually not true at all.
I'm taking a drink.
The ACLU opposed it because they thought it violated the teacher's individual rights and academic freedom.
Exactly. And nothing about demonstrating evolution makes Christians look stupid unless you want to insist that to be a Christian you have to not believe in evolution. But that's not normally something even Kent Hovind insists on.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a break coming up pretty soon, though. But here we go.
Okay.
And so William Jennings Bryan came down, who had been four-time vice presidential candidate, a very famous politician, a tremendous speaker, and a great Christian, and a great enemy of the evolutionists. William Jennings Bryan, B-R-Y-A-N.
Wait, wasn't it Bryant with a T?
No, he's right. William Jennings Bryan.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to take a drink for him getting it wrong and for me getting it... Or sorry, for him getting it right and me getting it wrong, because that is especially uncommon.
It does happen, though.
So well done, Kent. I was wrong about whether or not there was a T at the end of someone's name, and you were right.
He's getting the material facts of this case largely correct.
That's way better than he does with his farcical biography of Charles Darwin.
Yeah.
After the trial was over, Bryan died a few days later, and they started a college in his honor in Dayton, Tennessee.
Take another drink.
Bryan College. A good Christian college up there in Dayton, Tennessee, just north of Chattanooga, about maybe 80 miles or so. Okay? So Bryan College is named after William Jennings Bryan, the famous orator who defended the Christians in this trial. The trial lasted about 10 days in the middle of the heat, extremely hot.
No, he didn't defend the Christians. He prosecuted on behalf of the state, Kent. What is wrong with you?
That the Scopes had violated the Butler Act. That's what he was
right.
Yeah.
He was prosecuting. He wasn't defending anyone. He was prosecuting Scopes on behalf of the state of Tennessee.
He was doing so good with the material facts.
I'm taking a drink for that being stupid. Look, I'm not a lawyer. If you need legal advice, seek out a licensed practitioner in your area. However, my goodness, I do know the very, very basic things about being in a trial. And in a criminal trial, no one is defending the state. And you cannot call the state the Christians, because the Christians were not involved. The general Christian populace of the state of Tennessee were not involved. It was the state versus Scopes.
Yeah, this was a criminal matter, not a civil matter.
Even if it had been a civil matter, it still wouldn't have just been... You can't just sue all Christians. That is... Yeah. They aren't a corporation. They aren't a single person. They're not a thing you can sue. In order to sue all Christians, you would have to literally name every single Christian in a lawsuit, which, you know what? Good luck, buddy.
I mean, you could arguably sue a Christian organization.
Yeah.
But that's not the same thing.
Right, that's still not suing the Christians. Now, you could sue on behalf...
What about the First Baptist Church? It's the first one. That should count, right? Maybe you guys want to change your name to like the Fourth or Fifth Baptist Church.
Well, as I understand it, like even this trial itself kind of highlighted the debate among Christians between fundamentalist Christians and modernist Christians regarding evolution itself.
Yeah, there was that too. I mean, it just... He was doing so well for so long, and then it just started to fall apart. Well, here we go. Let's get a little bit more in.
Air conditioning in 1925, and everybody, when you read about the trial, it's an amazing book to read. You can get this from Bryan College. Get the book from them. This is listed in my seminar notebook in the yellow pages, or in the blue pages, references which you have here in front of you. You can find it should you decide to get this book. I should find it real quickly. Page 57 or 8, I think.
All right, I'm going to make one quick point, and we're going to go on intermission. The quick point that I want to make is, the thing is about the Scopes trial. It was a famous trial that was important in terms of, the history of civil rights and the First Amendment in public schools and whatnot. Nothing about that trial makes a lick of difference as to how true or not true evolution is. Courtrooms do not decide what science is. Science is decided in the literature, in the peer-reviewed scientific literature. Nowhere else.
But any honest court of law, though.
Yeah.
The trial was really more, are you allowed to restrict what can be taught in schools based on religion or not?
Yep. I mean, there was
And
some rhetorical effort to make the anti-evolution side look silly. That was an aspect of the trial. I honestly, if I would prefer that, if something like that happened in a case, that a judge would say, hey, this is not relevant to the material facts of the case, which are, did Mr. Scopes violate the Butler Act by doing this? And ultimately, your goal is actually to get it guilty. Like, the thing about Darrow was not actually trying to acquit Scopes, because the whole point of the case is to appeal it to a higher court, because you want the law to be judged unconstitutional, either by the state or the United States Constitution. To do that, you have to have a conviction, because then you can appeal to a higher court, like the appellate court, or the state Supreme Court, or the federal district court, or the Supreme Court, or something like that, right? So, Kent is just very badly mischaracterizing the motives behind most of the people here, and also doesn't know the difference between the defense and the prosecution, apparently. Which, that might go a long way to explaining why he fared so poorly in his own trial, and why he then tried to sue his own lawyers after the fact more recently. But we're going to go to intermission.
Okay.
So, this is a chance for everybody, go get fresh drinks, stretch your legs, do whatever you need to do, and we will be back.
I want to take a moment to talk about something serious. There is a problem facing late surviving non-avian dinosaurs in modern America. Hunting is very strictly regulated, and only allowed at certain times of the year. This means that for much of the year we have to rely on farm-raised food, which means money. If you want to help a starving dinosaur, please consider donating on Patreon, or buying from my merch store. Links are in the description. Please help. Dinosaurs all over YouTube are depending on you to help them through the hunting off-season.
Oh, Nani? Dare? Oh, Gojira desu ka? Hi, Gojira-san. I forgot to turn off the intro sequence on that, so sorry about that, everybody. But, you know, that's a pretty common occurrence here because I'm producing myself. Because I can't reasonably pay a producer, nor am I willing to hire a producer and not pay them. Which I know a producer, you know, hashtag what about Boole, who would do it, but I feel guilty asking Boole to help me out like that without giving him money, and I don't really feel like I can. So, as a result, you have to put up with some mistakes.
Or just do a whole bunch of super chats.
Personally, I like the human element to my media.
Thank you. Or do a whole bunch of join the channel / join Patreon, which actually, by the way, I had a whole bunch of people join at the $1 tier on Patreon to get early access to all of the speculative evolution stuff. So if that's a big thing for you, is the speculative evolution project on the channel, I do highly recommend that, because in addition to getting like early access to my videos, I put up like right now the $1, well, all the patrons, but you know, a lot of them are $1 patrons, but they all have access to like the phase 3 for the speculative evolution project maps, including like elevation maps, sea depth maps, currents, wind patterns, all that stuff. So if that's, and the phase 3 announcement isn't actually coming until the Thursday after, it might be next Thursday, like the one after this one, or it might even be the one after. So they're already they already know also what's going extinct at the end of phase 2. So they're already gaining access to all the stuff that they need to start making phase 3 creatures. So if that's a big thing for you, I do recommend that you either join the channel or the Patreon at least the minimum tier. And the channel, it's $1.99 or something, and the Patreon is like $1. So, and if you join, you'll have to send me some kind of message on Twitter or Discord or something. Tell me who you are, and then I can get you the invite to the Discord server, because it's automatic for patrons, but I have to do it manually for channel members. So yeah, just let me know if you do. And if you don't, keep that money. Because, you know, once you have their money, never give it back. That's a rule of acquisition. I don't know which one, but it's one of them.
It's one of the early ones, if I remember.
Like
Donald Edwards says at Dapper Dino, re for the regat.
Nice. Also, I do like that you found out ways to get your re's in there, because Donald Edwards was having trouble with the spam filter catching his re's because there were way too many e's.
Well, he hyphenated each one of them, and then they're all a different kind of E with different diacritical marks, what I can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, is that the first rule of acquisition? I think it might actually be the first. Yeah, once you have their money, you never give it back. The first rule of acquisition. Nice.
It's a good one.
That is a good one. And it's not even one of the ones from Beta Canon. That's from Alpha Canon. That's from the Nagus, Deep Space Nine. It's, yeah, Monk Favor. It's rule 1! I'm sorry, I don't know all the Ferengi rules of acquisition. Goodness.
I don't know all of them, certainly not by number.
I should memorize them.
Deep Space Nine definitely expanded.
All right, yeah, but this isn't a Star Trek thing. We've been back for minutes now. Let's go.
All right, let's go.
About schools. No. Looks like, what page? 57 covers it.
Oh goodness, Ken, who cares? Just move on.
Yeah, well, okay. Page 57, first column.
Ugh.
The world
Let
famous.
them find it on their time, not my time.
Okay. Right-hand column, 57, world's most famous court trial. Good reading.
Is it the worst famous?
What's happened?
I mean, it's up there. How many trials can you name Can you name that have happened more than 50 years ago that are still relevant to today?
Trials?
Okay. I mean, I didn't say it was the first. I said it was high up there. And how many can you name?
Okay.
One? I mean, that's not even a trial. That's a bunch of trials. Can you name any one of them?
Roe v. Wade was almost 50 years ago.
Almost.
That wasn't really a trial, was it?
Well, it was. I mean, yeah, it was a trial. It was a civil trial.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a few, but like not very many. Kitzmiller versus Dover. That was too recent. So yeah, I mean.
After this trial was over, the atheists lost. The judge found the teacher guilty.
True.
First, not the atheists, the defense, and it was their goal to lose. Let's remind ourselves here.
The atheists tried in this trial, and the evolutionists tried to bring in all sorts of testimony about how evolution is true. They were going to bring in the Nebraska man. Later it was...
Wait, Is anyone else hearing what sounds like a weird radio transmission on the video?
Yeah, I'm hearing it too.
I'm gonna double check to see if you guys can see that because or the audience. I think I don't have any filters on right now. I do. They probably can hear it. So I'm turning off my filters on the computer audio, and I'm gonna see if they can hear this.
Proven that all they found was a pig's tooth. They found one tooth and made a whole missing link out of it. The Nebraska man.
First of all, one guy found a peccary, not a pig tooth. Now, granted, Thyasuidae and Suidae are sister groups. And that's the peccaries and the Old World pigs, or the Old World pigs and the peccaries, because that's the order I did. But it's also the case that peccary and pig molars look very similar to human molars because of our similar diets, because we're both generalist foragers and occasional hunters by nature. Yep. Plus, basically, the discoverer was essentially the only person who took those claims seriously. Virtually everyone else was like, nah. Exactly. And it was only sensationalist newspapers that ran with the story, because you know what they're there for? To sell copies. Not...
It's kind of like that scene from The Simpsons where, like, Ralph is in the excavation, like, I found an arrowhead! Like, that's a trowel blade, it broke off. And I found it!
Yup, basically.
And that was going to be one of their key bits of evidence to bring in Nebraska man. Early in the trial, when they had all these witnesses lined up, they were lined up to come in and teach, evolution is a fact and all scientists believe in it. One of I believe it was William Jennings Bryan or his son, who was also there helping William Jennings Bryan, the Christian, said, Your Honor, whether evolution is a fact doesn't matter. That's not what this trial is about. This trial is simply, did he break the law or not? And so they just, with one fell swoop, they undercut all of the work those guys had done to try to bring in evidence for evolution.
Not really, because the goal of that was basically to just have something in there to show how ridiculous the law was, so that on appeal it might be a little bit easier since you already have all this stuff in evidence, but whatever. Because again, the goal wasn't to win for the defense.
Years later, the Tennessee, the Supreme Court had that law repealed.
I mean, as well it should have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the law didn't actually end up getting overturned. So ultimately, yeah, the ACLU and allies did not win that case, ultimately. But they did accomplish their goal at the initial trial. So.
Evolution, and the judge said, you're right, it doesn't matter. We're not here to try whether evolution is true or not. We're here to try, did he break the law or not? And turned out he was guilty. He was fined $100, which was the minimum fine under the law at the time. And several people volunteered to pay the fine, but even that fine was overturned when on appeal. It went to an appellate court, and there's some little technicality, and they threw the fine out. So nothing happened. It remained illegal to teach evolution in many states up until 1968.
That is correct. That is when the law was overturned.
Take a drink, everybody. Ken Hovind got it right. There we go. And by the way, the person chatting as Sphincter of Doom in the chat is in fact Josh here.
Yep.
Oh, German Furman, you are really late. You gotta get on that, man. German Furman has done some of my favorite fan art, by the way. He did a really, really great Dapper Dino. I think it was a pencil sketch on paper.
Is it German Furman or is it German Furman? Like, is he a hirsute individual?
I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and go with the rhyme, because that's more fun.
It is more fun, that's true.
Yeah.
1968, the last law banning evolution was overturned. At no time ever throughout any of this was there any question about teaching creation. It's always been fine to teach creation in the public school. There has never been a law against that. Finally, even though it was against the law to teach evolution, many states were teaching it anyway. They just stuck it in the books. And the problem really was with the textbook publishers and with the teachers and school boards who are ordering these books that teach evolution.
I know, how horrible that you might actually want up-to-date information in your school books. Oh, the horror!
They've never made it illegal to teach arithmetic in school. But they keep updating these math books.
Oh, man.
But so it was taught, even though there were laws against it, it was still being taught, regardless of what the law said. Then, in 1981, I believe, or somewhere around there, Arkansas passed a law that said, if you teach evolution, you must teach creation. In the early 80s, I should look up the date, but it doesn't matter. It won't be on the quiz. Arkansas passed a law that says, it was called the balanced treatment.
Yeah, that was the thing that we were doing at the beginning of the episode. Remember, he was like tossing out craisins? That's his weekly quiz.
Oh, we're not going to be taking
Yeah, no, I don't care.
Hey, if you're going to teach our kids evolution, we demand you also teach creation. Which many people thought was very reasonable. Hey, if you're going to teach one, let's teach the other. Let's try to make everybody happy.
Yeah, if you're going to teach my kids geography, you should also teach them flat Earth. You're going to teach them about
my kids arithmetic. You better teach them numerology. If you're going to teach my kids astronomy, you better teach them astrology.
Yeah, that's... And I mean, I can imagine people making those arguments, but that doesn't mean that they should be given any weight.
Yeah.
ACLU came in and challenged that law and said, if you force teachers to teach creation, that's a violation of the First Amendment. And a judge named Overton at the 8th Circuit Court, I believe in Little Rock, Arkansas, it was in Arkansas where it ended up, I believe it's Little Rock. Judge Overton said, you cannot demand the teachers teach creation.
I'm with him.
Period. Now, they did not say you can't teach creation. What they said is, you cannot demand that they teach creation. Big difference, right? You could still teach creation if you wanted. All they said was, this law, which forces the teachers to teach creation, is unconstitutional. And believe it or not, it probably was a reasonable decision on the part of the judge. So Louisiana wrote a law a few years later and said, same kind of thing, we want equal time. If you're going to teach evolution, you must teach creation. That, of course, was tested by the ACLU, the American Communist Lawyers Union, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court.
Whoa.
Supreme Court said, okay, you cannot demand they teach creation. However, Supreme Court said, they can teach creation if they want. We just cannot force them to teach creation. So what's happening is an awful lot of misinformation going around out there. A lot of the evolutionist groups and atheist groups are saying, see, the court said you can't teach creation. Oh, that's not what they said at all. The court said the states cannot force the teachers to teach creation.
That was a joke?
Was that a joke?
Did I miss a joke? I may have missed
I don't think it was a joke. I think he was just being sarcastic or...
You guys want to drink for it anyway, just in case?
I don't know. I'm just reading Monk Mayfair's comment. I missed it if it was a joke.
I mean, maybe it was. You know what? I'm perfectly willing to say that maybe I missed a joke.
I don't think Monk Mayfair is a liar, so I'm going to drink.
There you go. I mean, he is learning Klingon.
But I missed it. Sorry, Monk Mayfair.
And you need to understand that difference because that is vital. You've always been allowed to teach creation in public schools. I speak in them all the time. There's never been a law...
I hope that's not true, but it's kind of horrifying that it might be.
...against teaching creation. There's never been a law against teaching the Bible in a public school. There never has been a law. Institute for Creation Research, ICR, in California, publishes this little document every month. One comes out. They call it Impact articles. They're 10 cents a piece. You can get on their mailing list if you call this phone number and ask to say, put me on your mailing list. I believe it's free of charge.
I kind of want to call that number, but I'm pretty sure it's been long enough ago that that's no longer their number, and it might just be some innocent person's.
You could be even more sure about that.
Actually, you know, I think the only person I've ever called on this channel on air was my mom, because Kent Hovind told me to. It was like, you might want to ask your mom's permission. So, do you remember that when I called her up?
I don't remember that.
No? Oh, maybe it was an Eric with Erica. But yeah, she was on the phone. I put her on speakerphone. I'm like, hi, Mom, you're live on the channel. I just wanted to ask permission to go to this website.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Did she give you permission?
She did!
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so then we went to it.
Well, hey, you covered your bases there.
Oh yeah, I got parental permission.
What you had to.
Oh yeah.
So.
I don't want my mom angry at me for going to websites I'm not supposed to.
Their phone
can't be angry if she doesn't know.
Well, you never know. They've got ways.
Yeah, it's free. Their phone number is 619. Yeah, 619-448-0900, and just say put me on your mailing list, and they'll send you stuff every month. Actually, they've been doing this since 1974. these little articles they put out at 10 cents a piece.
Oh my
once
goodness,
a month.
Godzilla.
You could go back and get all of the back issues for about $35. And it is tremendous reading. If you want to get an awesome resource to keep you busy for months, those are great articles. This one is article number 196. I believe as of today they're up to number 350 or something like that. So I figure $35 should get you all the back issues.
Oh, apparently it is still their phone number. Interesting. I don't want to be on their mailing list, so I'll pass, but...
Play from 1974. This one talks about how you can teach creation science in the classroom. You may want to get some of these and order 100 copies from them and give them out to all the teachers you know, if you have some influence on teachers.
Give teachers propaganda for only $10. Thanks, Kent. Also, I'll bet they're more than 10 cents now, or they've just been discontinued.
In your area, give them one. Most teachers are afraid to teach creation because they think the law says they can't do it. And they're just misinformed. You can teach creation. In 1963, when prayer was taken out of the schools, how many remember that case with Madeleine Murray O'Hare?
It wasn't taken out of school, Kent, just like you've been saying. You can't force people to pray in school. It's almost like there's a difference.
Schools, say your prayers, Simpson, because the schools can't force you like they should.
Basically. So I'm going to take a drink for saying taking prayer out of schools, because that never happened.
Yeah.
They took a mandatory prayer out of our schools. That's what happened. It was mandatory prayer that was removed.
Then you got it right. It was mandatory.
Prayer wasn't removed. Only mandatory prayer. Big difference. 1963, the Supreme Court said...
And you know what? I agree. It is a big difference. And I do not want anyone making it illegal to pray in school. That is completely inappropriate.
Nor mandatory.
Right. Also, I don't want anyone... You know what? Even my Catholic school didn't mandate that you pray. They mandated that you, at the very least, be respectfully silent when the school prayer happened. But not even my Catholic high school mandated that you personally pray.
Yeah, and I went to a non-religious high school, and there were regular daily prayers that were voluntary at the flagpole every morning, which I personally didn't participate in, but plenty of people did.
Yep. It's almost like you're allowed to do your own thing until you interfere with other people doing the same.
It's true.
Crazy. What a crazy, crazy thought. It's like it's freedom or something. I don't know.
Wow, freedom. That's nuts.
I know.
Wouldn't it just be easier and better to control everybody else?
You would think so.
Certainly simpler. I don't know if it's easier.
Well, is it even simpler, though? Because you gotta do a lot of control work.
Perhaps.
There's a reason police states tend to collapse. And part of it is just like, it's hard to control that many people in that kind of detail. Alright, let's get some more Kent in.
It may be said that the Bible is worthy of study for its literary and historic qualities. Nothing we have said here indicates that such study of the Bible or of religion, when presented objectively as part of a secular program of education, may be effected consistently with the First Amendment. This is the school district of Abington Township in Shemp versus Shemp, 374 U.S. 203, blah, blah, blah. 1963 Supreme Court case. They said clearly, you can teach the Bible if you want.
No, yeah.
And there's some ill-informed ignoramuses running around out there saying, hey, you can't teach the Bible in public schools and you can't talk about creation in public school. I'm sorry, you are mistaken.
You know what? Ken is correct. That is not the case. Nor would I really want it to be the case. I mean, even if you don't believe the Bible is true in any particular way, it has been a foundational text to so much of Western culture and history and literature that having at least a basic understanding of it is helpful to you trying to explore any of those things. And anything that has been such an important influence on the culture that you live in is something you should know a thing or two about. So I would say, regardless of whether or not you're a Christian or a Jew or whatever, if you're living in Europe or most of the Anglosphere, or even also most of, like Latin America, you should probably have at least a basic understanding of what the Bible is, what some of the major stories in it are, and the history of it. And I think the public schools are well served by giving their students information like that. And I also think they should probably teach them about some other important holy texts. Like, I wouldn't mind having a comparative religion class in public schools that goes over, say, the history and basic content and structure of the Quran, or maybe the Mahabharata, or at least the Bhagavad Gita, which is just a section of the Mahabharata, etc. None of that is a thing that I think we should do away with, because it's important to understand these important works of literature and culture, even if you don't believe them.
1980, Supreme Court ruled again in the case Stone v. Graham. They said the Bible may constitutionally be used in an appropriate study of history, civilization, ethics, comparative religion, or the like.
None of which are science.
You want to teach the Bible? Have at it. There's no law against that. 1980, the Eighth Circuit Court ruled, and they said, you can teach the Bible and have religious elements in your school as long as it advances the student's knowledge and appreciation of the role our religious heritage has played in the social, structural, and historical development of civilization.
Again, not science.
If you're a teacher in a public school, you can bring the Bible in and say, kids, okay, let's study let's read this passage out of the Bible and see what this did for our nation. You're studying historical documents. It's a book like any other book. You don't need to be afraid of it.
Yeah, but if you did that in math class, Kent, you should be fired. I'm taking a drink. That in some class, in public school, the Bible is an appropriate subject does not mean that it is an appropriate subject in every class. Look, if you wanted to do Bible class, and by that I mean comparative religion or history of world religions class, that's great. But if you want to bring it into, like, I don't know, math or science or home ec, no. Because you know what? The Bible's not going to teach you how to bake a cake or how to solve an equation or prove a mathematical formula, or not formula, but like prove something in geometry or something, nor is it going to give you any help in terms of the development of organisms through time.
I mean, I shouldn't say it's a book like any other book, but as far as the school goes, you can read the Bible.
Yeah.
Don't let somebody tell you you can't. If they tell you you can't read the Bible in a school, they're ignorant of the law. But here's what has happened. The ACLU will threaten to sue. Now, they would lose the suit, and they know it. But it doesn't matter. The threat of a lawsuit will cause the average principal to say, we can't afford a lawsuit. Teachers, quit teaching creation. So it's the principal that is stopping.
Is that the reason?
I don't know. Even if it is, I don't mind. Honestly. If the ACLU, I can't talk. If the ACLU is threatening lawsuits in order to get teachers to not lie in science class, that doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, it would be the same as if maybe there's no law against teaching anti-vaxxer propaganda in health class. I don't care. Threaten to sue them for doing it. Yeah.
In
Geography, yeah. Or earth sciences more generally, yeah.
It's not the courts. It's not the law. It becomes a local policy. Because we got gutless principals and gutless school board members who won't stand up to the people just because of the fear of a lawsuit, which goes back to what Jesus said, the love of money, root of all evil.
Is it the love of money? Or is it more that, you can't actually, if you have less, you can't afford to defend your position, that means that you're going to hurt kids because now education in other ways is going to suffer.
Yeah, like maybe the schools should just go be broke on the basis of some weird principle. I don't know.
87, Supreme Court ruled again. This was the Louisiana case. Louisiana case was finally ruled on in 1987 by the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, among other things, they said, we cannot force, they did say the Louisiana law is unconstitutional because the law demanded equal time. They said, hey, you can't force the teachers to teach creation. However, they said, teachers already possess the flexibility to present a variety of scientific theories about the origins of mankind. They are free to teach any and all facets of this subject. Teaching a variety of scientific theories about the origins of mankind might be done with the clear secular intent of enhancing the effectiveness of science instruction. All of these court cases are spelled out in your seminar notebook, which you have in front of you, in the yellow pages. Question number 11.
Tessa Ranger said the love of structuring is the root of all evil. Yeah, you know what? if the love of money is the root of all evil, Kent Hovind must be into all sorts of evil, because that dude likes his money and he likes to keep it, even when the law says he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Which starts on page 74 of this current edition of the book we're using for this class. So if you want to show this to somebody, if somebody says you can't teach creation in school, all the laws are right here in this section on what can you do in a public school. So you can read it all. Everything I'm showing you on the screen here is right there in your book. Okay? California State Board of Education, this is also in here on page 11, said, discussions of any scientific fact, hypothesis, or theory related to origins of the universe, the earth, and of life, that is the how, are appropriate to the science curriculum.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now tell me, if you were a teacher in California and you read that, would you assume you can teach creation if you want?
No, because that's not a scientific hypothesis or theory. That's just a made-up thing that someone in the 60s came up with.
It's also not testable is the problem.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's not always true. Some of the claims of creationism can be tested, have been tested, and they're false.
That's true. So there are too many... The things that remain are untestable.
Basically, yeah.
Or either rely on circular reasoning or just unfalsifiability, and the distinction between that might even be... There might not be much of a difference between the two.
There are a few novel predictions that a few creationists have made, but that they're not in any rush to test, and then they just tout that they made a testable prediction. It's like, okay, was it accurate? And they're like, well, I don't know, but I made a testable prediction. That's the gold standard of science. It's like, no. The gold standard of science is confirming testable predictions.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody can make predictions that could be tested.
Right. It's trivial.
I predict I'll win the lottery tomorrow.
Exactly.
Certainly you can. Now, the teachers cannot try to force the kid to become a Baptist or a Catholic or a Buddhist, okay? They cannot use taxpayers' dollars to try to convert people to their religion, but they can certainly present, hey kids, here's one view. They can read the Bible to them. And I get sick and tired of these people going around saying, see, the court said you can't teach creation in schools. Show me where the court said that, please. The court has never said that. They couldn't say that. That would be a violation of the First Amendment right there. You got the freedom of speech. The teachers do too. You don't give up your constitutional rights when you walk across the door to the classroom. This book we sell through our ministry, Teaching Creation Science in Public Schools, by Dwayne Gish, who's one of the vice presidents at Institute for Creation Research, is a great book that you can give out.
Is that what?
Is he the origin of Gish galloping?
Yep.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
Yep. That is the guy after whom Gish galloping is named.
I bet you have no idea who originated the Hovind hustle. It's Kent Hovind, yeah.
Not Beethoven, no
relation.
I'm
not related to...
No, yeah, you're not related to Uncle Kent.
That's why my name is Ben Hovind, no relation.
Exactly.
Teachers, $4.75 through our ministry. You might also want to get a hold of the Written Hours, their phone number there, and all this information is in the yellow pages of your notebook here. They are helping people start Bible classes in public schools. Many states have them, 20 or 30, I don't remember now, but you can have a Bible class as an elective in your public school. Your preacher comes to become the teacher. It's really amazing the latitude we have, but very few people do it. We all sit back and say, oh, public schools are going bad. Well, get in there and do something about it. Fix it.
Okay, yeah, maybe. I mean, sure, if you think someone's doing something wrong, I guess it makes sense to try to correct that, but there's a proper way of doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, my car's not running good. Well, tune it up. Fix it. For heaven's sake, do something about it. So these two items on this one slide are not necessarily connected to each other, but the Written Hours will help you get a Bible class started in your public school. Perfectly fine. ACLU wants to get creation out of schools.
What's that?
I think Bible classes in school are perfectly fine. I don't understand how, but he seems to be conflating having Bible classes in school, whether they're just from a theocratic, well, not theocratic, but like a theocracy, like, hey, I'm going to avail myself of understanding this more, or actually, I know a lot of proselytizing is about establishing community and fellowship. That's also fine too, but there's a fine line between that and science, which I think Hovind is like once again just ignoring.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
I think there's a much bigger picture of why they want it out of schools. Without going too far down this rabbit trail now, we'll get into that later on seminar part 5. If the creation theory is true, then there's a creator, obviously. If there's a creator, we might have rights that come from the creator. Our founding fathers said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. They are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights." The rights, we have the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We have all sorts of rights, and those rights came from God. The government didn't give you that right. God gave you that right.
Whoa. He said their creator, not a specific creator.
That's true. The Constitution and the Declaration of Independence don't... I mean, the Declaration of Independence does say something about a creator, mostly because most of the people writing it were either deists or theists.
Right, and they acknowledge some form or manner of creator. And even if you were to be kind of wishy-washy on it, like even an atheist would say, like the natural, the laws of nature could be your creator too. And
yeah, they were very generic, but yeah.
Well, suppose you would like to have a new world order, a one world government with Hillary in charge or something, okay? If you have this idea that you want a one world government, you want everybody thinking that...
Oh, goodness. No, well, never mind. Doesn't matter.
You have authority to give them right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You don't want folks thinking they've got rights that come from God. If you get a bunch of folks together that believe their rights come from God, those people don't make good slaves. They're going to throw the tea in the harbor and rebel against the king, right? Which is what happened in 1775. So
at the same time, people who think that your rights come from law, like natural, like you just have natural rights regardless of your position on the supernatural, also don't make good slaves.
Yeah.
So
it turns out you can justify inalienable rights both from a theistic and from a non-theistic standpoint, and a non-deistic standpoint too.
Yup.
And then Ira Radwell points out, Azathoth didn't give us the right to life. That's true.
Evolution teaching is essential for communism.
What?
Communism falls apart without evolution.
What?
The founder...
You mean all those communist countries that explicitly got rid of evolution because I thought it was an excuse of the bourgeoisie to oppress the proletariat? That communism, I'm taking a drink.
Yeah, that got really crazy really fast.
Like that was like, it just seems like it came out of left field there.
Yeah.
Ken Hovind's always ready to complain about communism, which to be fair, there's a lot to complain about. It's just he usually gets it really wrong.
I think
any given sentence he says could just be completely nuts.
I think
wow.
Circling back to his idea that a one world government would necessarily be led by Hillary, I think he's conflating anyone on the left side of the political spectrum is interchangeable with anyone else. So what the...
I think at that point, at this point, she was becoming prominent on her own as opposed to like just her association with Bill. I think at this point, just when she was becoming she was a senator, a relatively recently elected senator, and was becoming active in the legislature and whatnot.
Perhaps, but I saw it as okay. So people on the communism is considered on the left side of the spectrum, and then evolution is, at least in Hovind's eyes, seen on the left side of the spectrum, even though
it's really not.
It's not.
Yeah.
So I think he's trying to push that conflation more.
Well, the thing is, anti-evolutionism tends to be pretty extremely far right. So if you're super far on the right, then anything even a little bit left of you seems like communism, I guess. I don't know, maybe.
Of the ACLU, Roger Baldwin said, "Communism is the goal." They're going to use lawyers and lawsuits to bring in communism. That's the ultimate plan.
That feels like a quote mine. I don't know.
I have no idea. I have no idea if that's actually true.
Let's see here. To the Google.
Roger Baldwin? All right, you find out if that's true.
Roger Nash Baldwin condemned the inhuman communist police state tyranny, forced labor in the 1940s. He led the campaign to purge the ACLU of the Communist Party. He was for socialism, not communism. But okay.
Well, let's take a drink then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I tell folks jokingly it stands for the American Communist Lawyers Union. It's actually the American Civil Liberties Union. But it is a communist organization. Now that does not mean all the lawyers in the ACLU are communists. Many of them probably don't even know that the foundation of their organization is the promotion of communism.
Ooh, it's a sneaky conspiracy, guys. All that time that you're fighting for things like free speech and against racial discrimination. Nope, communism.
Is he forgetting that the ACLU themselves fought for the right for the Nazi Party in the U.S. to have a conference in some major city just on free speech grounds?
Well, I don't think he cares.
Yeah, probably not.
Roger Baldwin said, that's the purpose, folks. We're going to try to bring in communism. And so they're using the legal system to try to intimidate schools into not teaching creation, because creation is one of the biggest hindrances to communism. If there's a creator, well...
No. Well, okay, religion as general tends to be, but evolution certainly also isn't a big help to communism.
Then he tells us what to do. And countries like Russia, Ukraine, these former communist countries, they're still communist, by the way, nothing's really changed, but they have to have evolution. I've heard missionaries say, they were in countries like when China was taken over by the communists. The missionaries said, the first thing they did, the communists came in there, they didn't teach communism. They got all the kids together and began teaching evolution.
I don't believe you. I'm gonna hit X to doubt.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true.
First thing is evolution, and then we'll teach them about communism later. It happens in every place where a communist country is taken over, where a country is taken over by communism. They have to teach evolution first.
Oh,
so, as far as what you can do in a public school, we've got several books, one by the Gablers, here about what are they teaching our children. If you do want to get involved in textbook selection, we'll get into more of this on video number 4 at the end. But Mel Gabler in Longview, Texas, and his information's in the blue pages in here about the schools. Their phone number is also in the back of the book right here. If you want to get, by the way, area code changed. We're not fixing that in these? We need to. 903. Just make a note to have them do that. Area codes are changing all over the country, after the book was printed. But the Gablers, for 38 or 39 years, have been researching and reading every public school textbook that is printed, or nearly all of them, and writing a critique on it, finding mistakes. So if you get on your textbook selection committee and would like to save an awful lot of time, when you're given the books to decide from, get a hold of the Gablers and say, here's our list, which one do you recommend? They've already read them all.
Is this just a commercial, like an hour-long commercial for Kent Hovind's books that he sells at his store? This is ridiculous.
I think all of it ultimately is.
Yeah, I guess that's
when you're looking to decide on books, decide on mine.
Goodness.
Or the ones that I'm promoting anyway.
Good Christian organization in Longview, Texas. You might also want to get this little booklet. They're $3 each from the Rutherford Institute about students' rights in public education. Just what does the law say?
I'm skipping ahead.
Students who can't write about this topic.
Yeah, the legacy of
you need to learn a magic phrase. This will get by every time. You say, teacher, are you discriminating against me because of my religious belief?
No, they're discriminating against you for being a moron. That's not fair. No teacher should be making fun of someone for believing in creationism.
Yes, I do. As I think you pointed out, R.N. Ra said, someone is either a creationist, ignorant, or dishonest, and I think most fall into ignorance.
For me, it was ignorant.
The average,
a couple years ago?
Yeah, the average creationist on the ground, like the guy or girl who goes to church and they hear about creationism and then they go to school and they're like, oh, I should probably pretend that I agree with all this evolution stuff, or at least get it understood well enough to pass the test, but I don't really have to absorb any of it. They're ignorant. They're not lying. But the people like Kent Hovind or Ken Ham or like Dwayne Gish, they're dishonest.
That's the magic sentence right there. Are you discriminating against me because of my religious belief? That's all you got to say. Oh, no, we're not. Okay, well, then I think I'll write it on creation. Okay, go ahead.
No. You need to demonstrate a grasp of the curriculum. You don't have to agree with the curriculum. Any teacher who says, "Oh yeah, sure, you can write a science paper on creationism," should at the very least fail you. They should alert you that if you write things that are demonstrably false according to science, you will get an F.
Well, not just that. Even in the social sciences, I mean, there was a class I took in college where I disagreed with a number of conclusions, but I wrote out exactly what the argument was, what the basis of the argument was. So I demonstrated an understanding of what the position was. Then I gave reasons why I disagreed, and I would still do well in the class because I wasn't straw manning it. I wasn't pretending like it was something else. I actually did the reading, and
right.
I mean, you had to, the point of the school was to demonstrate your understanding the material, not necessarily to agree with it.
Yeah, especially in especially in college, where it's like you're supposed to be grabbing that knowledge. In high school, most of it's so broad that you should probably be in agreement because there's really nothing controversial that's being taught in most high schools. Mostly because high schools tend to be 10 to 15 years behind, at least in science classes anyway. But
because they're scared stiff of that discrimination word. That's the big one, the big D word that scares them. Because there's lots of lawsuits over that.
Ken Hovind just said big D.
We also have a book called Students' Legal Rights.
That's like when he had THOT on one of his slides.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. Probably Ken.
I forgot.
Big D. Quote Ken Hovind.
What did he have for THOT? I don't remember.
Oh, it was clearly just a typo or a misspelling of thought, like THOUGHT.
Well, he was trying to shorten it to fit in on his PowerPoint slide.
It was a phonetic spelling of
yeah, but it was still hilarious because
THRU to get it to fit.
Wasn't Cheshire with us at that point? Or she might have joined. Maybe. She might have rejoined the call or something like that.
Yeah, so she could just laugh out loud for 10 minutes because it was so funny.
She also, I think she first came on that because Ken Hovind decided to go full flirt in that episode.
It was quite an episode.
Yeah. Although I will say we're getting through a lot of this one, so hopefully we won't have to listen. This episode has been of Kent. I'm getting bored with Kent here. My goodness, Kent. Yeah. So luckily it looks like we won't have more than one more episode on this particular video.
On a public school campus. This one is all the more detail about the laws, which, for instance, on page 53, it explains that students have the right to be exempt from any class that is teaching something contrary to their religion.
I'm not a big fan of that, and if I were in charge, that would not be the rule.
Not only that, but it seems like that's increasingly the case. Like, I remember, and I'm not going to comment as too far on it, but there was like certain law students were able to opt out of certain classes based on the material because the nature of the crime itself was either unsettling or controversial. So I'm like, wait, I mean, you're a law student. You should be you may not find the crime, like you may be upset by it, obviously, but the point is to understand the law.
I mean, I guess if you're going to be a lawyer in intellectual property law, and someone's like, oh, hey, take this course about, muck duck or R word, I can see why you'd be like, nah.
In this case, it was about sexual crimes, and some people were uncomfortable.
All right, well, okay, we're not going to get demonetized, so that's why I included the R word, and we're going to continue on.
Now think what that means. If your kids are going to the public school, and you don't want them taught evolution, all you need to do is go down to the school, to the principal, or to the teacher, and say, and I would do it in writing, and you might want to send it certified mail.
Okay.
So you got proof they got a copy.
Oh, hey, certified mail has legal meaning. What do you know?
Spell it out clearly. I do not want my child taught evolution. This is contrary to our religion. I do not want my students taught sex education. This is contrary to my religion. Or
yeah, leave them ignorant, pregnant, and chock full of STDs. That'll be fun.
Whatever it is you don't want them taught. The school then has to give them alternative material, and they cannot count their grade off. If they do, you have grounds for a lawsuit. This is how the atheists are getting all their goals accomplished.
Ooh, the atheists! Shut up, Kent. It's not the atheists. Goodness. I hate this idea that it's like the only people who exist are the atheists and the Christians, and they're locked in an eternal struggle. That's just not what's going on.
They're suing for the dumbest things, you know. I'm not saying we ought to be sue happy, but we ought to stand up for our rights. Remember when in Acts chapter 16, when Peter was beaten, they threw him in the jail, he got the Philippian jailer saved. At the end of the story, the leaders in the town said, okay, go tell those guys they can leave now. Paul said, it wasn't Peter, it was Paul. Paul said, forget it. They beat us openly, uncondemned, being Romans. You tell them to come down and apologize publicly. Right? We need some of the moxie that Paul had to say, let's just, forget it. I'm not going to roll over and let you beat me. I want a public apology. And I think it's time that Christians, in Christian love and with wisdom from the Lord, we need to use the legal system. They were tying Paul up, going to beat him one time, and he said, hey, I'm a Roman citizen. I appeal to Caesar. Scared them all half to death, didn't it? What's wrong with that? Okay? Let's stand up for what's right. And students need to know they do have the right to be exempt from classes that are teaching something contrary to their religion. In Matthew chapter 8,
I mean, maybe it's like home economics. You want to be exempt from like eggs and bacon day because you're Jewish or Muslim. I don't really care. But like, I'm not a big fan of religious exemptions for health or science classes. No, I'm not. I would be willing to say that I would advocate overturning any law that would allow someone to be exempt from a health or science class on the basis that their religion requires them to believe something that's wrong.
Not only that, but even if you're Jewish, and correct me if I'm wrong, so you're not allowed to eat bacon, but that doesn't mean you can't prepare food with bacon to sell to others who...
I think that is incorrect.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a reason that Jewish delis don't have bacon on the menu. For one thing, you're not supposed to be eating food from the same vessels that have been used to prepare bacon. So that might be an actual reason to get out of home ec or to be able to bring in your own pots or pans or something. I don't know.
Right.
But
okay.
I know that in Islam, you're not allowed to transport, sell, or handle any forbidden foods or drinks. So.
Jesus said,
which actually resulted in a number of Muslim taxi drivers in London refusing to carry people who had wine or other liquor, which then caused a lawsuit. And then the taxi companies basically all said, no, you have to take the fare. You cannot refuse the fare. If you can't deal with that, quit. And oddly enough, most of them were like, no, I'll stay. Okay, I guess money's more important than God. Good to know.
Whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone be hanged about his neck. Any teacher that's teaching kids evolution, obviously that's going to destroy their faith in the Bible.
What? No, I'm taking a minute. That's stupid.
Yeah, that's, I mean...
Define obviously.
Yeah. By obviously mean in no way is it likely to, unless you've already spent your time insisting that to be a Christian you have to be wrong about biology.
As I understand it, both Catholicism and Orthodoxy acknowledge evolution is true, and it's simply a subset of Protestants, at least worldwide, that decry evolution.
Eastern Orthodoxy hasn't made any declaration either way. There's no... If you're Eastern Orthodox, there's no required or prohibited stance on the age of the universe or evolution. Because it's not an issue that the Eastern Orthodox Church has found important. The Roman Catholic Church has said that there is no conflict and that evolution is the way that God created the world. So,
I guess those are kind of saying the same thing, though, because there's no required position on it in our Orthodoxy, but also there's no conflict from Catholicism.
Catholicism is a bit stronger on saying that evolution is evidently true. They've made like various popes have made statements confirming that evolution is evidently true, whereas as far as I know, there's no similar statement coming from various hierarchs in the Eastern Orthodox Church. So.
Yeah, and it's hard to say the same for Protestants. Really don't have for lack of a better term, a hierarchy. So
yeah, although most mainline Protestant groups don't have any strong teaching against evolution or the old Earth or anything like that. So it really is just a subsection of like evangelicalism, mostly centered in North America, and even the places where it's Like there are various Canadian and UK and Australian based places that there's even I think a few creationist places in like ministries in like Germany or France or something. But even they are dependent on the US based output of creationism. Like there's very few people writing new ideas in creationism in like the UK. It's I mean there's CMI in Australia, but for the most part it's a US based thing. And it is exported from the USA to other countries. However, we are coming up on that time when it is time to wrap up. So, I'm going to say some channel news. I know that last week I said that the update for Phase 3, or sorry, the final update for Phase 2 of the Speculative Evolution project was going to be last Thursday, but then the video that I scheduled to have go premiere on that Thursday was the wrong one. And by the time I had realized that, it had already been scheduled for several hours, and I didn't want people who were already had that tab open or who had set a reminder to be disappointed. So I chose to let that video premiere instead of the one I was intending to premiere. So now I am telling you now, my intent is to schedule the update for the final update for Phase 2. I think it's update 6 for Phase 2 this Tuesday. Then I have no idea what's happening Saturday. Maybe it's nothing. Although I did recently find a new creationist, so you never know. He left a message on one of my videos, and I was nice about it. So I'm not going to be, super angry. Oh, and Brainbug, you just got here. I'm sorry, man. Hey, every Tuesday, 6 Mountain Standard Time is our normal go live time, which also means that sometimes it changes.
Brainbug's been here about 20 to 30 minutes based on the chat. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
Let's see. Do remember, if you haven't already subscribed, to do that. Like the video if you haven't already liked it. Other than that, feel free to check out the merch store, the Patreon, join the channel if you want to, all that good stuff. Or don't. You don't have to have a Dapper Dino fleece blanket. They're pretty cool, though.
They're really cool.
Also, check out coppermagma.com, where I don't think there have been any updates since last time we talked.
No, there haven't.
There is still stuff in the works, so stay tuned there.
Yeah, lots of demos done. We're done with 6. We have to finalize 2 of those, actually, and then they're done.
Okay.
So that's like half the new stuff we're doing. So. And
you're going to get to hear what's either the final or almost the final mix of Bose on this week's, not the whole thing.
Yeah. So what we're going to actually call it, we're all just going to call these, all of these songs we're doing demos because we are recording them ourselves. But that being said, I have a feeling that it's going to be the final version of every one of these songs.
Well, you're going to get to hear some of that at the end of Thursday's video, because that is the version of the song that I've used there. So that'll be at the end credits. And there's also going to be the, you've already seen the newer version of the openings, so that's fine. But anyway, Josh, do you have anything that you want to plug? I don't think you have a big online presence outside of being on the show, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
No, but I guess you and I are going to try to work on a mini series of videos on a primer on thermodynamics.
Yeah, I mean, if that's something that interests you, I'm perfectly willing to host it and also, do a lot of the work about editing and if you want, getting an avatar and whatnot. So yeah, that is not something we can say is set in stone, but I am very willing to help with that. And yeah. So hopefully that comes out. But I think that's it for us. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope I see you on Thursday for the premiere. And have a great night. Have a great week.
Yep.